What we're going to show now is how to escape the system when you've got multiple anchors out of reach. First thing I'm going to do is tie off the belay plate. Got that brake hand in there again, that full fist, being mindful that I've got somebody else's life on the end of the line here. And making sure I'm doing everything really nice and neat. So there we go, so that's two, so it's pretty secure at that point. I'm going to put the third one in, third half hitch in there, tells me I've got enough tail. Again, keep it nice and neat. Great, so I'm now in a hands-free position. You want to think about the process you're going to do things in here. If I start here with prussaks and things, they can run away from me down the rope, or I have to do an intermediate, clip them to something. So I'm going to start up the back. And what we need to do is to bring all of these ropes together. And that can be achieved with a sling and a clem heist. So get the stitching out of the way again. I'm going to work from the top down. Keep the head small, so pinch them quite tight to start with, and then work your way down. Try and be fairly neat. You can do this with a flat Dyneema sling as well. Works really well. Pop the tail through the head. And again, what I'm looking for is that head not to come down much lower than the bottom of the body. It's going to give me that nice aggressive bite on the prussak. So that's grand. The French prussak is going to go on here, but the two aren't going to be able to reach. So straight away into there, I'm going to pop a extender, one of my extendable drawers, so that's ready. Yes, I'm using snap links, but I don't carry enough screw gates to put screw gates on all of this, so that's fine. I'm going to pop them there, maybe slide that a little bit further away from me. There we go. Yeah, that feels good. And on another sling back here, that's the place where I tend to keep my screw gates. All of my slings will have a screw gate on. I'm going to have that in there ready as well. So I'm sort of thinking about the jobs that screw gates are going to be doing and saving them for the important ones. So we're now ready to get a French prussak on down the front here. There we go. So just offset the knot a little bit, and then same again. I'm going to wrap that down there. Depending on your prussak will depend on how many wraps. The reason we're putting a French prussak on here is we're going to want to be able to release this under load. So the French is going to allow me to do that. Do check it. Remember, it's somebody else's life, so do make sure you're doing your checks. So I could tie a knot in this and bring everything closer to me, but that can potentially cause me problems when we retie the power point. It can all get a little bit too close. So you can see I'm giving myself that arm span of working room here. Just helps stop problems later on. Great. So now we're ready to actually bypass this part of the system and get the casualties weight onto the two prussaks. So I'm going to go to the belay plates. And taking your time and having your attention in the right place with each step, it's pretty critical. So I've got full fists on the rope again now, the brake rope. Yeah, that looks good. I might give a little warning shout. Hey, there's going to be a jolt! 2 hands and pull up hard. And then making sure, you almost need to have your eyes in 2 places at once here. I want to look at the French prusik and at the clem heist. I tend to focus on this one first to see if it is actually going to grip. So as I release that rope, you can see the kink in the rope as the load is taken by this, so that's good. And when it gets to that stage, I can see that this rope doesn't have much load on it. I can pull that through. There we go, look, the system starts to go in a straight line. Yeah, that's looking good. Then I look up here, I'm still holding on to the brake rope, so if anything weird happens, I have still got my partner. And I'm checking that this one isn't creeping as well. So both of those are looking trustworthy, that's grand. Next thing I'm going to do then is pop an Italian into the screw gate that I pre-placed. And before I tie it off, but keeping hold of the dead rope still here, I'm going to get rid of the belay plate off the rope. There's that top little tip, rather than pulling your Italian through, which then means when we transfer the load, it will try and invert and gives a bit of creep into the whole system. It's loaded there in the direction of the casualty, so I'm going to treat it like a clove hitch. Pull down on that side first. Get that nice and snug. And now I can tie off my Italian. Again, nice and neat, making sure I'm getting everything right first time. Fab. So at this point, I've created a little bit of breathing space, and I'm going to figure out what it is I want to do next. Now let's say I need to go down to the casualty to administer first aid or something like that, then I need to turn this system into something that I can abseil off of. I wouldn't want to abseil off the back of the Italian, and I certainly wouldn't want to abseil off a clem heist, because the casualty's hanging on that as well. That would be both of us hanging on this, and even if it was quite close to the clove hitches, so that if it did slip it would bang up against them, you can imagine if I was down there and all of a sudden everything started to slide, that's going to add an extra element of excitement and stress to the situation that I really don't want. So what we need to do now then is recreate a new PowerPoint. So that involves this here. To do that, I need to make myself safe first. So I'm going to get rid of the belay plate. You don't want to drop that, that's going to make your life really exciting. That can go around onto there. So we're going to go for a cow's tail, and use a sling. Again, get that stitch in by your little finger so you know where it is. And just a lark's foot onto here. Now I think I might be abseiling, so I'm going to preempt that and pop my isolation loop in at this stage as well. So I'm just sort of thinking a little bit ahead. Great. And how are we doing on the screw gate front? I did see one around there. There we go, there's a spare one there. So I'm going to pop that into the clem heist. That whole thing about making sure cows' tails are nice and snug, so I'm going to put a knot in there so that I can't shock load that. That would be a very bad thing to do to the clem heist. Happy with everything. All right, now I can come out of the system. This means untying, which is a pretty freaky thing to do. So again, taking your time and eyeballing everything. I am having to step forward a little bit, so I am aware of that cow's tail. Figure of eight's quite tight. So you'll notice I've left the clove hitches in the boa. And that's because we're going to use that to create a new power point. So I don't want to take those out. So it's worth persevering with that figure of eight. So what I want to achieve here then is a new power point, and then I'm going to abseil off of that. Could I tie a figure of eight here and have it in the top of the crab? Well, you'll see it's going to be sideways loading the boa if I do that. There's going to be too much going on here. Let's rethread that. So again, worth taking your time. You'll find it can be tricky to get the tension just right on this. Dress that. Fab. Okay. So that now gives me a new power point into there, and you can see everything here is going to work. I don't need to adjust everything there. So that's grand. Right, I could do with another screw gate. So ultimately we want to have everybody now clipped into this. So that's myself and the casualty are going to come onto this loop. And that's why I haven't stripped that out of there. I've left it in there. So if we want to get the casualty onto here, have we got, well, there is that one. I might want that. My rescue crab is always a screw gate, so I could strip some of the gubbins off of there. Put that onto one of my snap links. Frees up another crab. Great. And then into here. So I'm going to keep hold of the brake rope. And what we're doing here is we're putting redundancy into the system. Could I just transfer the casualties rope over and rely on the Prusik? I could, but I don't need to. I can do this relatively efficiently. So for the sake of a second or two, this is going to be fine. So at that point there now, I can get rid of that and get that tight. Again, I'm going to be mindful of orientating it in the direction of the load. So tweak it. And tie it off. Ace. So that's all sorted. Fab. What I've done now is freed up a screw gate up here. That's going to be useful for me. And now we can release the French Prusik and get the casualty onto the belay proper. Sometimes this can be a bit of a fight, but there we go. That's why we want the French there. Nice. People will tell you about doing all sorts of funky things with the sling here, tying this off so that if you can't release this, you could release that. This is improvised rescue. If something like that happens, ultimately, I'd very carefully use a knife on the Prusik and I'd just cut it. So, you know, you can take this to the nth degree, but do remember this is an improvised situation we're thinking about here. I'm going to keep that there because I might want that in a minute. There we go. Looking good. So what about if I wanted to head down there then and look after that casualty? I'm going to want to abseil as well. Abseiling off the back of either of these systems, either this rope here or that rope there, is not a good idea because you're not through the power point. So I'm going to create a little isolation loop here. I'd have to have made sure that I've got enough rope to get down to them as well. Now then, how are we doing? Oh, there's that one screw gate. I think there was one round here off the sling. Yeah, that's that one that we won back. So I'm going to pop that in there and then give myself a little bit of slack just to, and pop a clove hitch into here. Nice. I need to get myself onto a belay plate, onto there. It's a bit below me. Can I do that safely? Certainly hope so. Definitely running out of screw gates now, so we might have to do a bit of back-to-back action. Okay, so there, no way that those two can open. Fab. All right, there's a little bit of slack here. I'm going to be super mindful of that. And I'm just going to transfer myself into there. I'm going to strip that off of there because I might want that when I go down to help my partner. Great. Stripping all the gear as you go, taking your time to do that, could be really critical for you for when you get down there and managing the situation that you're going to encounter. So to abseil back down to them then, we're going to want a belay plate, so that pre-loaded knot. If you forgot that, it's not the end of the world. I could clip the belay plate onto my belay loop. I just have to be mindful of where I've got my prusik if I'm going to do that. Nice. And then the last thing I need to do is to get the prusik on. I quite like having the prusik in the middle on my belay loop rather than on a side. Ah, running out of cramps. And the reason for that is it means it frees up my hands. It doesn't matter which hand I'm doing anything with, you know, rather than my left hand down here. So this way just means I'm a little bit more ambidextrous, which might be useful when I get down there. Clip that lot out of the way. And then happy with everything, grand, away I go. Not going to lean back too much on this dry stone wall.